We are all a member of a society, but in an uncertain, challenging, stratified, and powerful world of people. How do we understand society as members? Hello, beautiful souls. Smile. How are you? Welcome to the part 2 of this three-part series pre-recorded video intended for only academic purpose for students currently taking the subject Understanding Culture, Society, and Politics. As a learning material, feel free to navigate. You can pause anytime and answer some questions thrown at you, either reflectively or through writing. You can have with you some writing materials too, like paper and pen or whatever suits you. Use this learning material at your own discretion. No need to watch this video in one-time setting. In case of questions, clarifications, or confusions, feel free to communicate with your teacher. On the first part of the video, we discussed about becoming a member of a society requires the awareness of our status and roles, and in functioning all these roles as fortified by the agents of socialization like family, peers, school, and so on. The self is something which has a development through our social experience because we belong to a society. Our role identification starts at home through the process of enculturation, where we learn and internalize relevant roles based from our status, like respecting the elders, doing assigned home chores, and the like. Our family members oriented us to conform to the acceptable behaviors as a preparation of integrating ourselves in the society that expects greater social obligations through the process of socialization, where we learn the culture of others, or what we call as acculturation. Without socialization, there could be no society, and without society, there could be no culture. As enculturation and socialization are lifelong processes of social interaction, its end results will tremendously decide how we appropriate our behavior in our social interactions and fulfill our social obligations in accordance with our social status. Such behaviors are governed by certain rules or standards we refer to norms and values. Values are rules of behavior which define what is right or wrong, acceptable or not, while values serve as standards for evaluating norms. Take note that these social norms and values can be best understood only within the context of one's culture. Thus, we must refrain ourselves from judging other people's culture using our own. This attitude of cultural relativism mitigates being ethnocentric and propels cultural understanding. In the previous slides, it has been constantly mentioned that as members of the society, we are expected to accord our behavior to what is acceptable and desirable as dictated by our status, roles, values, norms, and culture. These social expectations, either implicit or explicit, manifest the influence of social, political, and cultural factors that are interconnected. Social influence describes how our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors respond to our social world, to follow social rules, and obey authority figures. Thus, as members of the society, we have the natural inclination to conform. Conformity means aligning one's attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors to what is generally acceptable in order to fit in or get along. It's a powerful force that can take the form of overt social pressure or subtler unconscious influence. Generally, conformity is a voluntary change of behavior so as to get social acceptance. It is a form of implicit expectations of social influence. For example, why do we refrain ourselves from wearing revealing clothes, something that is deemed informal or inappropriate, when we go to the church? Why do we likely wear or eat or buy just like what others do? Why should we act having fun when we are with our peers, when we go to bars or any place of entertainment? Why can't we go out in public naked? It's not like you will be imprisoned if you won't, but you voluntarily change your behavior to appropriate with the dictates of time and place, which means conformity is relative. Conformity is different from compliance and obedience because these two speak of a direct or indirect request and of people in authority, so to speak. Now, going back to the concept of infant cognition, as previously discussed in part 1 of this pre-recorded video, notice that infants do imitate what adults do, like they automatically clap when others clap or smile when others smile. We have a strong impulse to conform because conforming is contagious. However, it's not all the time that we can conform to what is socially acceptable norms or standards of behavior. Oftentimes, we violate social norms that steer negative social reactions. Such behavior is known as deviance. Deviance means any behavior that is contrary to the dominant norms of society, like crimes against property, persons, or morality, and organized crimes like drug trafficking, illegal gambling, prostitution, smuggling, money laundering, etc. What is regarded as deviant can shift from time to time and place to place, which means it can be normal in one cultural setting but deviant in another, like the cutting of clitoris among women in African tribes, or not eating pork for the Muslims or beef for the Hindus, or not having more than one wife for the Christians, among others. For Durkheim, deviance is normal as long as it is not excessive. It's even present in the community of saints. If you may recall on our previous discussion in topic 1 about the different sociological perspectives, deviance can also be framed on these. It has its own symbolic interactions, it can cause conflict, It is part of the structure of the society, but it has its own functions too. Deviance helps make the norms of society clearer, and it promotes social, political, and cultural change. Whether a behavior is considered deviant or something conforming depends on the circumstances under which it occurs in a certain society. Little faults and flaws will be magnified to the same scandalousness as serious offenses, and thus will become known as crimes. According to Merton, deviance is a byproduct of economic inequalities. To address the issue of crime, the overarching issues of poverty and economic inequality must be addressed first. In most cases, the legitimate means of achieving wealth do not always lead to this goal, either economic, or it can be economic, social, political, and cultural. And not everyone has access to these legitimate means, such as pursuing higher education or achieving higher positions. Oftentimes, when there is a mismatch between these goals and the personal goals and the means of achieving these goals, it will result to anomie. Anomie is a state where society fails to exercise adequate regulation or constraints over goals and the desires of individuals in achieving these goals. Societies are characterized by both culture and social structure. Culture establishes goals for people in society, while social structure provides or fails to provide the means for people to achieve those goals. According to Robert K. Merton, in a well-integrated society, people use accepted and appropriate means to achieve the goals that society establishes. In this case, the goals and the means of the society are in balance. It is when the goals and the means are not in balance with each other, or the state of anomie, that deviance is likely to occur, because this imbalance between the cultural goals and the structurally available means can actually lead an individual into deviant behavior. Anomie is a sociological explanation to deviant behaviors, a sudden breakdown to the regulation of rules. Conformity can be very simple, as like following group conventions due to group pressure, but when on its severe level can lead to deviant behaviors because of groupthink. And deviance can be as simple as like eating less so as to look sexy, but on extremes can lead to eating disorders, or do illegitimate means to conform the physical attractiveness espoused by media. Society then needs to create mechanisms of regulating the expectations of its members, known as social control. Social control refers to the mechanism of how society tries to prevent and sanction behavior that violates norms. It's a social regulation of the goals of people and the means of achieving such goals so as not to strain towards anomie. Anomie creates deviance. and deviance requires social control to increase conformity. But how exactly an organized structure of society constrain behavior and cause deviance among its members? As social control is never perfect, this presents opportunities for people to see loopholes. In this situation, there is great pressure to try to get ahead by any means, legitimate or illegitimate. Such discrepancy of individuals' adaptation between cultural goals and social structures is expressed by Merton in his typology. The key to each of the 5 general adaptations to anomie is whether there is an acceptance or rejection of the cultural goals of success, and whether or not the choice is to strive for the goal via legitimate or conforming means or through illegitimate or deviant means. The first one is conformity, the most common form of adaptation to anomie, the status quo. Conformists have accepted the cultural goal of success or wealth attainment, and they are trying to achieve it via legitimate means. For example, you study instead of cheating to pass the test, graduate, earn a degree, and then you work hard to get promoted once you have a job, or pursue legal business to have economic success. Conformity is the only non-deviant adaptation to strain and anomie. The second form of adaptation to anomie is innovation, wherein you have accepted the cultural goal of success but resort to illegitimate means. Innovators like robbers, thieves, prostitutes move into criminal or delinquent roles to overcome those structural blockages or impediments to survive. In simple terms, when you as a student resort to cheating to pass, you are considered by Merton as an innovator. The third form of adaptation to anomie is ritualism, wherein one rejected the cultural goals but accepted the institutionalized means of such goal. The dedicated workers who will never advance to management positions, or those people who have accepted that they will remain poor, or those students who abandoned the idea of being honor students but continue to do what is right, are what called by Merton as the ritualists. They are sometimes over-conformist or do things by the book. The fourth form of adaptation to anomie is retreatism, or abandoning both the cultural goals of success and the institutionalized means of doing it. This involves the complete escape from social pressures and demands of an organized society. This is usually an escape mechanism whereby the individual resolves internal conflict between moral constraints against the use of illegitimate means and repeated failure to attain success through legitimate means. Chronic drunkards, extreme drug addicts, and vagabonds or homeless people are examples of this type because they are in the society but not of it. The last form of adaptation to anomie is rebellion, the most extreme, a category for political deviance. Rebels are those who don't play by the rules but work to change the social political system to their own hands. They reject cultural goals of success or wealth attainment and substitute it with another goal in whatever means necessary, either using a legitimate or illegitimate means to achieve such goal. Merton considers the terrorist groups as rebels who often use violence to achieve political ideologies. These adaptations describe the kinds of social roles people adopt in response to social, political, and cultural structural pressures. The fact that both deviance and crime arouse negative social reactions remind us that every society needs to ensure that its members generally obey social norms in their daily interaction. As I've said previously, that anomie creates deviance, and deviance requires social control to increase conformity. A conforming or deviant act depends largely on culture as shaped by the society. Thus, it's highly contextual or relative. Like smoking marijuana and prostitution is illegal in other countries, but these are illegal in others. What is considered as right, appropriate, and acceptable in one culture varies from one society to another. But of course, regardless of its relativity in time and space, social control is necessary. It can take informally like gossips, ridicule, stigma, and stereotypes as labels. These informal social controls restrain people from violating socially accepted behaviors and standards. Formal social controls include those rules, policies, guidelines, ordinances, and laws crafted by social institutions and organizations to maintain social order and restricts the violation of human rights. Whether it's formal or informal social control and deviance, these can be explained or viewed using the sociological perspectives of structural functionalism, symbolic interactionism, and conflict. These sociological explanations remind us that some social environments pressure people to conform while others produce more deviant behaviors. As to those proponents of the labeling theory, it's viewed that deviance and conformity are not the result of what we do, but how others judge what we do. Thus, in understanding our membership in the society, we need to elucidate further how the society we are in is organized. So, this concludes part 2 of the 3-part pre-recorded series for topic 2, Understanding Society, Culture, and Politics, or Understanding Society through its membership and organization. For the next video, we will be talking about how society is organized, in particular, the different types of group. Stay tuned for the next upload. And before I let you go, here is a reminder. Instead of judging others and their culture, let's try to be more understanding, culturally sensitive or relative, socially imaginative, and peacefully coexisting, because we are not in the position to judge but to understand. Take care always, and God bless you.